I've been listening yesterday. This is my first conference, ABC conference, by the way, and it's a pleasure to be with you. And I've been listening to the lifelong Adventists here, and I was comforted when Peter was talking to say he is not a lifelong Adventist, neither is Carla, and I don't know who else. I grew up an altar boy. Can you imagine me as an altar boy? That's what I grew up as, in a very strict Catholic family. And the joke is when I came to the US, and I left Lebanon in 1982, and people ask me, so where did you come from? And I say, I came from Lebanon. And they say, well, when did you become Christian? And I smile, as if Christ was born in Minnesota. And I say, maybe 1,000 years before your great-grandfather heard about Christ, we were Christian, so on. So that Catholic background, we grew up in the mountains I grew up in Beirut, but in the mountains in Lebanon, those of you who may know anything about Lebanon, it's a mountainous country. And there are many small villages. And there are churches in these villages, and they don't have enough priests to pastor, so they have one priest that caters for maybe 2 or 3 different churches. So one day this priest was riding his donkey, because that's how they went from one village to the other in the old days. And he rides his donkey and he enters this village going to church to do the sermon. And when he enters church, the sky opens up and it was raining very heavy. And he waited to see if people will even show up in church. One farmer walks in and he sits in the front pew. The priest looks down from the pulpit and he says, son, what do you think? Should we do this sermon today? It doesn't seem there is anybody in church today. The farmer looks up, says, Father, I'm a simple farmer. I wake up in the morning, I go to feed the cows. If 1 cow shows up, I feed it. If 10 cows show up, I feed them. The priest heard the message. He said, okay, son, let's do it. So for the next hour and a half or so, he went on that elaborate sermon, biblically based, Christ and salvation, the devil and damnation. It was a wonderful sermon. 90 minutes later, he finishes, he looks down at the person in the pew and he says, son, how did I do? He looks up, he says, Father, I'm a simple farmer. I wake up in the morning, I go feed the cows. If 10 cows show up, I feed them. But if 1 cow shows up, I don't dish out all the food. And that is the challenge today. How much do I talk about whole person education? And how much do I talk about what we have? To be honest with you, if I want, I can have maybe 1,000 slides here talking about it. And that's what we're going to have to do to condense it. What I want you to understand is that we are on a journey in Advent Health University. It's not that we have it figured out. We are doing it. We're building the aeroplane as we are flying. So last week, as many universities, some have graduations Sunday, we had ours a week or so ago. We graduated 581 students. And to be honest with you, standing on that stage, shaking hands with 500 some people, I need to stop smiling for about a month after that. And I don't know why we have to shake hands with every single student out there, with the dry hands and the sweaty hands and the trembly hands and the people who want to hug. And it was my first graduation at AHU, but it was a wonderful experience. And then, when we finished, when the ceremony finished, and I left and I went home and I said to myself, well, 581, that was the number. 540 in Orlando and 41 in Denver. 581 students, and I said to myself, are these people, and remember, we are a science university. We are a health science university. We graduate nurses, physician assistants, nurse anesthesia, physical therapy, occupational therapy, go down the list. And the spiritual care program, let's not forget. Chaplaincy is also a clinical program. So all of them are going to be working in 80%, 83% of our graduates end up with Advent Health. So they finish, they go to work in Advent Health. So have a failure rate of 17%. My goal is 100%, but we have 80-some% of our students work at Advent Health. So I asked myself, well, if Advent Health, a primary promise in the market, their consumer promise, if you wish, is delivering whole person care to the community. Well, who is going to deliver this whole person care? So you hire a nurse from University of Central Florida, great school, Wonderful school. I have nothing negative to say about them. Very good programs. But is that nurse ready to deliver whole person care? We hire a nurse from Harvard University. I don't know if they even have a nursing school there. Great school. But is that nurse, or is that physician assistant, is that occupational therapist, is that physical therapist, is that whatever profession they're in, are they able to deliver whole person care? Because if we do not do that, then how is this promise of Advent Health going to be delivered? So we feel the burden at Advent Health University to make sure that the people we graduate from our university are entering the workforce, specifically Advent Health, because I am preparing people to work at Advent Health, although I can't control it 100%, are able to deliver whole person care. So whole person education produces a whole person who can deliver whole person care. That's the theory. So we started to ask ourselves, is it the green button I need to push? We started to ask ourselves, so what does that mean? How do we deliver whole person education? I have two questions there that I will end with. I'm putting them there for you to take note, because I want you to think about those two questions. I will ask them later. So instead of going through the whole discussion and then asking you the questions and you forgot what we talked about, keep those in mind. Specifically that first question. Because if the whole person education curriculum is not integrated in the structure of the institution, it doesn't work. You are not Adventists on Sabbath, but not on Monday or Tuesday or Sunday. You are not delivering mission in a school, in a university, or a hospital if you have a class called mission, and if you have a prayer in the beginning of the class. I'm not saying we should not pray before class. I'm not saying we should not have a class on mission. But if mission is not integrated in everything that we do, it doesn't work. It has to be institutionalized, part of our DNA, part of our structure. So keep those two questions, because we're going to come back to them. So I have a very, very powerful theology department, although I am not a theological institution. I don't have a seminary. But I have two of them today with me. My colleague here, Dr. Kostyuk, who really did all the work here. I just do the talk, and he is leading the effort. And I have Dr. Tobias Stan sitting right here. So I have two, I'm not missing anybody, right? These are the two people that I have from Advent Health University. So I go to Oleg and I say, find me something that we can anchor this whole person care in, something that the Adventists can relate to. So he pulled from the book of education, and you read that. Well, I mean, do you need more clarity? Do I need more clarity about what whole person is, what spirituality means? Interestingly enough, just a couple, maybe 10 days ago, a group of my colleagues, or my executives, if you will, at Advent Health, were on a tour in Europe, in Greece specifically, and they went to Kos, K-O-S. Anybody has heard of this island, small island? On the Aegean Sea, yep. So it's a small island in the Aegean Sea, and very close to Turkey, actually. It was part of Greece. And the famous thing about Kos is what? Those of you who have been there. We talk about the Hippocratic Oath. That's what what's his name? That guy. That's where he, that's where he was. And if you go to the island and you see, you have a tour, some tour guide, somebody to tour you around and show you what's happening, he shows you the first medical school. That's where medicine was invented, if you will, if you believe all the history. And that's where whole person care is talked about. So the concept of mind, body, and spirit, it was developed there. So it's not new, it's very old. It's what kind of spirit are we talking about, I guess. That's what makes the difference. So now in the book of education, Ellen G. White, I mean, she talks about whole person education. It's the whole period of existence possible to human beings. It's the harmonious development of the physical, mental, and spiritual powers of the individual. So 1903, when this came up, when this concept of whole education came out. Then we come to Advent Health University. We have a motto. It's not our mission, it's our motto. And the motto is developing skilled professionals who live the healing values of Christ. You know what? Every morning I say to myself, I am going to work to do this, to help develop skilled professionals who live the healing values of Christ. And every evening when I go back home and I review the day, I find out that I failed. And when I wake up in the morning, what do you think I'll do again? I'll do the same thing over and over again. Every morning we try, every day we try, and every day we fail, and next day we try to do the same thing again. That's our vision statement. So when you look at our motto and you look at our vision statement talks about whole person care and talks about professionals with uncommon compassion. So now, how does the educational system produce those individuals? How does our curriculum, how do our instructional methodologies, how do our teachers deliver that? Not in the theology classes, but in the medical laboratory science class, in the biology class, in the anatomy class, in the whatever class they are taking at the university. That is the question that we asked. And it's not because we have a lofty mission and we have a lofty vision and we have a motto we're very happy with. You see it everywhere you go on campus. We're living the healing values of Christ. By putting that alone, it doesn't mean that we are delivering people who are ready to deliver whole person care. And understand, our university is unique. We have roughly about 1,700 students growing to 2,500. So today we have 1,700. Our faculty and staff, roughly about, unlike Andrews or other places in the Adventist educational system, we are about 35% Adventist faculty staff. We're about 35% Adventist, so 1/3 Adventist and 2/3 non-Adventist. And I tell you, Adventists are the most difficult people to work with. They criticize everything. I mean, it's like nothing is right. And you have a person who's not Adventist. I mean, I have Muslims on campus who deliver the mission sometimes better than other people. They will be part of the 144,000, I think. No, let's not start there now. So when we started to ask ourselves the question, how do you start a model to deliver whole person education? We looked at 3 pillars. And I know the graphic here doesn't represent 3 pillars, but I want you to think about it as 3 pillars. The first pillar is our corporate sponsor, if you will, Advent Health. So if the corporate sponsor, Advent Health, is talking about whole person care, then we have to have people who can deliver whole person care. So we have to study this whole person care model and understand what in the world it's about. And it's not my job to prove it or disprove it. In fact, I don't care. It is what it is. This is what it is, so I have to produce people to deliver that. Yeah, you can laugh, Carla. I'm not here to, whatever it is, I'm fine with it. And then we augmented that with the scientific evidence, the academy we called it, the evidence-based. We educated our thinking, we informed our thinking by what other people have done. Because we are not unique. As I told you, this concept of whole person care was invented in Kos, I don't know how many years ago. Thousands of years ago. So we're not the first ones to talk about this, so we had to learn from other people. From the people in Vanderbilt, from the people at Harvard, from the people, I don't know where else. We'll talk about them. And last but not least, I said to my good friend and colleague Oleg here, I said, I want a theological basis too. So I'm not teaching John 1:16, I'm not teaching Corinthians, I am not an evangelistic place. I believe the Adventist Church has 3 ministries. There is the ecclesiastical ministry, if you will, and that's their job to go and convert and baptize. And I'm a product of that. And then we have the health ministry, which has a different focus. And then we have the educational ministry. Now, I am in the educational ministry. It doesn't mean that if you watch our behavior, you said, people watch what we do, Peter, and you're absolutely right. If people see who we are and they get impressed enough that they want to become one of us, God bless us. I'm happy. But I'm not keeping track of that to say I baptized 10 people this year. That is not my job. But I said to him, find something, I want to base it on some theological understanding. And he came up with, and you can critique him, by the way, because the theologians came up with that, not me. I said to him, you tell me, what is unique about Adventists? Other than we have 2 left feet and we don't know how to dance. But other than that, tell me what is unique about the Adventist church, theologically based. And that's what I would like to ask Oleg now to come and talk about, starting with the theological basis, going to the evidence-based, the scientific community, if you will, and perhaps ending with what we do at Advent Health.
Yeah.
So Oleg?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you see, to have the leader who has a very clear vision and mission, it's very helpful, because all this work is possible because of the clarity and crystallized mission and vision. So what I would say is just, so it's a three-body problem. There is such thing as three-body problem. It's actually a sci-fi that was, have you watched it? What do you think about it? It's fantastic. So it's a sci-fi. You can watch it on Netflix. It's a Chinese basically sci-fi. So they talk about three-body problem. Three-body problems because three bodies, they cannot exist. Reality is just in the solar system, three bodies cannot exist together. And try to live with two wives or two husbands. It's not possible either. So just that's why the world is just, that couple is good, three is a problem. So the three bodies may not necessarily coexist, but what is the most stable piece of equipment that you can take with you when you take a picture? Why? Because if you stand on three legs, is the easiest to maneuver and to move it around, because no matter how uneven the surface is, it will stand pretty strong. And that's why even the pillars, when you go to Greece, if you see the Titans, how many Titans will you usually see? 3. How many elephants are holding the earth? 3. So three bodies problem. For coexistence, problem. But if you want to have a good foundation, three bodies are the best. So what we try to do is we say these are our three bodies. So let's begin with the foundational, which is a theological. So we built here on the ideas, not just ideas, but also on John Peckham's book, which is God with Us, which is most recent book on, it's actually the most recent book on 27 fundamental beliefs. Very accessible way, and it's a heavy book, but very powerful because, and if you read his introduction, you will see that theology is, number one, relational, so it's a relational theology, so that is one premise. And the second premise that he makes there, and we were in lengthy conversations, and he knows about our vision of our university. He knows about this theological framework as well as AAA. So, and as well as our campus, because this was first presented at our AHU colloquium last August. And every new faculty that comes to our campus, this is what we go through. First, these are three elements that are distinctive for Adventist Church. 3 elements. This is what we see as Adventist Church as well. Sanctuary, in fact, we need to start with seventh day. What is seventh day? Sabbath, Adventist, Advent, and third is sanctuary. So do you see the connection? So let us begin with the sanctuary. You see, sanctuary is at the bottom. The reason why it's so foundational, because sanctuary for early church was the most important and critical element. Where were they gathering at the very beginning after Jesus' death? What was the place of gathering? Where is it? The temple. Why was Jesus crucified? Because the main argument why he was arrested and crucified, they found people who said that he talked about the temple. Why Paul was about to be stoned and arrested in Jerusalem? Because he did something wrong about the temple. He brought what is his name? Theophilus. Theophilus, who was a Gentile, into the temple. So you see why sanctuary is so critical? Because sanctuary is foundation for change. Sanctuary is the foundation for change. And this is the terminology that we use. So if we really want to think about sanctuary, it's just like the sanctuary. What are the best places in the United States? Nature sanctuaries. So that's why this nomenclature, when we use it with our new faculty, is just sanctuary. Let's become a sanctuary. So that is the first element. But what does it mean to be a sanctuary? All are in. All are in. A house of prayer for all. Not just nations. All. So that is the main premise. So the second foundation, the second theological foundation is Advent. And most of the time we talk about Adventists, when we talk about Adventism, Seventh Day, we don't call ourselves Seventh Day Second Adventist. Did you catch it? Seventh Day Second Adventist. We call ourselves Seventh Day Adventists. That means first and second. But first Advent is critical. And that's why when we deliver whole person care and when we talk about whole person education, first Advent is critical. Why? Because it changes the world. So how do we think about purpose and meaning and allowing people to find purpose and meaning, taking into consideration the first Advent and envisioning the second Advent. And the third element, which is Sabbath. And Jay, you can talk to Jay about it. But that is basically what that is. So this is the first foundational, which is our theological foundation. Now, when we talk about evidence-based, because when we talk to educators, when we talk to clinical setting, in clinical setting and healthcare, the foundation of clinical healthcare is what? Evidence-based care. It's just evidence-based care. So if we talk about theological foundation and do not seriously ground it in evidence-based, no chance. So that's why we need to partner. We constantly try to partner. Dr. Puchalski and we just had a conversation. So what we try to do, we try to partner with as many people, as many institutions and universities as possible to actually dream about this whole person education. And that's why you see biopsychosocial spiritual model, which is also, which is taught. It's taught at all graduate programs in our university. We use FICA for which is taught at absolutely all programs, but it's not just FICA. We talk about PSYCHA, which is spirituality, not just faith. We don't start with faith, we start with spirituality. We also talk about JICA, what brings you joy. And then we continue the conversation. And we talk about PICA, what brings you purpose. And we launched it with OT first, Masters of Occupational Therapy program. So they actually they had those PICA, PSYCHA, JICA, and all of that alternation and iterations of FICA. And they actually saw the greatest results. Because now there is no question about what do we do if they don't have any faith affiliation. Don't start with F. Start with S. What if they don't have any spiritual? Start with J. What if they don't have the energy? Start with P. So this is basically how they think about it now. And they actually see the results. Because we have evidence-based. They've done the research. It was a human subject research without IRB. But they actually brought the results to us. We analyzed those results. And it's on Canvas. So I can pull any of those studies anytime. And it's more than 36 people who have done it. So it's just, and they interviewed, each one of them interviewed more than 3. So it's, you see, so it's multiplied. So you see the results are there. And then finally, this is what we build on. Because Dr. Carla Park and her team, as well as the university, was part of this envisioning of what that whole person care might look like. And what we focus on, you will see in this presentation. So for us, the evidence-based outcomes are belonging. Do you see that in this circle? Belonging, because they can be easily justified by evidence-based research. Belonging, sense of belonging, because it's measurable. We can measure it. There is a study that has been done, not just one, but multiples. Then well-being. So we walk from belonging to well-being, from well-being to fulfillment, from fulfillment to purpose. And it's a circular because and you restart the journey. But that is critical. So what we try to do, you will see it in the next slide.
So this is where we married the two together. So Oleg talked to you about the sanctuary, a place that we all belong. Everybody is welcome. It's inclusive. He talked about the Sabbath, and the Sabbath is the well-being. And he talked about Advent, and the Advent gives me a sense of fulfillment and a purpose. So in our classes, in our curriculum, and this has been mapped, and he will talk to you in a minute, we mapped every syllabus we have. How many? 200 something? Yes, more than 200. I didn't keep track of that. But they mapped every syllabus, and they met with every professor to ask the question, are we delivering on this, and this? So we're not teaching the Sabbath, we're not teaching the sanctuary, we're not teaching the Advent. We are teaching belongingness, we are teaching well-being that comes from the Sabbath, we are teaching fulfillment and purpose that come from Advent. And we educated this with the evidence-based approach as you see up there. So this becomes the foundation of what we would expect to see in all our syllabi. So the curriculum at Advent Health University today started and will continue, and soon it will be 100%. I can't tell you it's 100% today. It's a journey. We started this. This will take us probably a couple years before it becomes culture, because before the behavior becomes culture. But it started, and we are on a good journey there. What do you have next? Now what I want Oleg to talk about is the journey that we started to get where we want to get. Because you cannot have 300 people. Look, when you work at universities, and this is something after spending 24 years in the corporate office, we're telling people to jump and they still tell me how high. And now I come to the university where everybody has a PhD and they think they're God's gift to creation. And they want to tell you what to do. You cannot expect them all to jump. So we have to bring them along. And that's the journey that Oleg will talk about.
So it started with this dream of whole person education, but then, so there are three body problems once again. Three body problems. So just where do you get the finances? Number one. Number two is just who will buy into this vision? And number three, will there be a support, overwhelming support? So those are always something that we count on. So what we tried to think how could we actually create a very clear buy-in experience? Buy-in that we do not give this framework to you, but could you develop this framework for us? So that was the goal. In fact, what you see, the results, like what we just presented, belonging, well-being, fulfillment, and purpose, we went through multiple sessions and iterations. And then ultimately, and this theological framework is the result of the group of 21 people first. 21 people. So we applied for a grant. We received one grant outside of our university because the goal is to make sure that it is not a burden for the university. So the grant was given to us so that we could actually work on whole person education. And it was supplied by Lilly Endowment. So Lilly Endowment gave us a grant. So please work on for whole person education. We said, of course we will. So then we dreamed about it. So multiple retreats, and then buy-in, which is one of the critical elements. So how do we make sure that we define it together for our university? What is whole person education? With these outcomes, belonging, well-being, fulfillment, and purpose. So these are the outcomes. How do we actually dream about whole person education now together? And as we speak, just today, there was another email sent out to our faculty and staff because there's a Cultivating survey, and probably Stan will also receive it, and Dr. Ghosn. So basically what it is, we gave it away to research office to build the assessment plan. So now a research office, we are not the ones who track it. Research office does it for us with clear outcomes of 1 or 2 publications a year on whole person education, and we are the guinea pigs. So we research ourselves. We do not want to create and research a third party. We are the ones who are researching ourselves. So buy-in, clarity in whole person education definition. Second, we talk about not just a program, not just a curriculum, but a process. Because number one, we need to remember about definition. Best things in life are not defined. Play with your children, how do you define play? Love, how do you define love? So the best things in life are not defined. Number two, training process. Why training process is critical? Because it's not a program. Because programs, they easily get outdated. Program, you can easily, apply the program and then you can throw it away. And that usually happens, the lifespan of a program, not more than 3-5 years. Never, ever longer. Never, ever longer. Think about any program that you've adopted. The process, though, like talking about religion, it's a never-ending process. So philosophy, never-ending process. So what we try to do, we try to instill the sense of a process that would allow for constant assessment, improvement, and integration. Assessment, improvement, and integration. So that is the process. And finally, because it's a process, third critical element, what we offer is just guidelines. We do not offer a textbook. we allow ourselves to dream and choose the right textbook that would very easily relate to your personality and where your personality and to your class and to your and whatever that may be. But just the guidelines. Does it make sense? Now, so then basically it leads to these two elements. In 2024, it's needs assessment phase. Now we are in this phase with what we try to do. We try to create a process, and we document absolutely every step. Research office does, and we will hopefully publish it this year or beginning of next year, so that it could be replicated anywhere, potentially, with some of these suggestions. And then we will move into implementation phase. And one of the most critical elements. So this is how we would like you to think about it. And I'm done now. So this is basically, no, everything is good? Carla says it's okay. I'm done. I'm talking about myself, my part. So this is how I would like you to think about it. So this is our vision. So this is our vision. And now it all will come into crystallization form. So this is our vision. How could we become a leader? It might sound arrogant, but it's just for the purpose of our faculty and staff. Let's just take it for now. So just AHU is a leader in whole person education, nurturing healthcare professionals committed to delivering whole person care. So that is our vision. Now, when we talk about strategy, there's 6 elements that are very important for us. Number 1 is culture. It all begins with team members, faculty and staff. So that's why we've honed on the very clear process that would allow for culture change. Does it make sense? This is the goal. This is the main goal. That's why in some of the initiatives, right now we have 42 people who are, we had a retreat about a month ago, and 5 people who are present here, this conference, ABC, they were present at the retreat. And so we'll have another retreat. So those retreats are never just come and let's just listen to something. No, those are working retreats. It's initiation. What that is, so here's 42 of us. Now we have 4 projects to work on. Where would you like to work? Choose your project, and then make sure, and then develop a plan of deliverables, and then we deliver in August. So that retreat that we had, they will deliver something in August during AHU colloquium. The entire campus will see the results of their labor. So the guidelines will be handed over to somebody, and this is what the word that, so their participation is fully participating in this. So that's why those are retreats. So they don't, after that retreat, they say, we are more tired than before the retreat. It doesn't feel as a retreat. So it's not fully a retreat. So that is culture change. Number 2 is curriculum, because that is the foundation for educational institutions. So that's why we are rewriting our institutional learning outcomes. That's why we talked with AAA and talked about spiritual assessment plan. We do not give them spiritual assessment plan. We say, this is our vision. This is what we develop. How can we adopt our requirements for spiritual assessment plans that it actually adopts our vision? And they say, no problem, because they really like the vision, it looks like. So curriculum, which is educational excellence. So we reframing that. Each course, Dr. Ghosn talked about it. So number 3 is we envision whole person education as not just a classroom experience. Not at all. It's a collaborative process between curricular activities and co-curricular activities. Every department at the university, we need to facilitate the journey of whole belonging, well-being, fulfillment, and purpose. Belonging, well-being, fulfillment, and purpose. And that's why each one of the departments, how do we actually do it in a very operational way? Very operational way. So the next one is research, that's why we have research team that work on that, dissemination and partnerships. And then partnerships, so yeah, we are actually, so right now we have 2 grants that allow this work to happen. So this fall we will hopefully be getting another grant. So they told us that they would like us to give that grant. And then we partner with other organizations just to make sure to bring awareness. So we had a national presentation in Atlanta with NetView, Council of Independent Colleges. So that was also very well received. So now they want to be on board of this whole person education journey for healthcare universities, and also as well as liberal arts universities. So how can we merge this idea? Because liberal arts universities, they dream about whole person education. So now we can actually participate in this journey together. So that is.
So now, how do you make it institutional? This is a graphic of our strategic framework at Advent Health University. This was created about a year ago. I am 1 year and 6 days on the job. And the first 3 months, we had to create this. Let me just briefly tell you what everybody at Advent Health University, the same tune, they're singing the same song. We are focused on two things: improving the product and growing the market, and nothing else. Now, just if what you are doing is helping improve the product, God bless you. And growing the market, God bless you twice. If it is not, then you have to ask yourself the question, why are you doing what you are doing? So under improve the product, we had two categories, as you see there. We have and behind these, there is at least 20 metrics behind it to measure. So we measure these metrics. The educational excellence, faculty staff development, that's improving the product, and the student success and growth is growing the market. Now you notice, in the old days, mission used to be a pillar. So you have 3 pillars there, and mission used to be another pillar. I took mission out, and some people had a heart attack. So what are you talking about taking mission out? Well, we didn't really take mission out. We empowered mission. So you see where mission is now? It is integrated, because if mission is not integrated in the educational excellence, in the faculty and staff development, and in student success and growth, then you're an Adventist on Sabbath only. That's what mission is. It's integrated in every syllabus, in every class, in the biology lab, in the chemistry lab, in whatever classes we are teaching. You want to click to the next one for me? And then we found really that the essence or the core of it all is faculty and staff development. That's how the culture is going to change. That if we work on the faculty and staff development, helping the few hundred people that we have with us be educated, understand what it means, then we're going to start to have educational excellence. The outcome will be educational excellence, and the outcome is going to be student growth and success. And then we will be able to deliver an individual, a qualified clinician who is able to deliver at the bedside whole person care. So that is how we made it institutional. So it is not something extra. It's not like Stan is adding something to his class when he's teaching, or the biology teacher is doing something different. We're not doing it differently. We're not changing the curriculum per se. We're focusing the curriculum. So while we're not specifically talking about Advent, Sabbath, and the sanctuary, we are talking about belongingness, we're talking about hope, we're talking about fulfillment, and we're talking about purpose. And the example can be Sabbath, the example can be sanctuary, the example can be Advent, the first or the second coming. These are examples we can give. So we're not theologians in a way, we're infusing the mission into our curriculum. And then I will end on this last slide. Yeah, here you are. And this is where we ended. So now I told you we are building this airplane as we are flying. We do not know if this will produce a whole individual who can deliver whole person care. That's the theory. That's what we think. Logic says it should. I don't know the answer. Some of you were here Sunday. I was not here Sunday. And a couple of our faculty were here. I know Dr. Arua was here. Aruha, right? Liliana was here. Yeah, she's Brazilian. So Aruja under Brazilian and Arua under Spanish. So I don't know which way she calls it. But if anybody knows research and statistics, she does. And Dr. Samsam, he was not with her, but she works with him. So we had the research people develop the methodology, as Oleg said. It's going to take us probably a couple years before we test this and see what outcome are we producing. I mean, it's the same thing with the whole model of whole person care. Well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It's perfect, makes sense. Do I know it's going to make a difference? I don't know yet. I mean, who can argue against it? You can't argue against it. It's difficult to argue against it. And that's the challenge we have today, that we're going to have to show empirically, both quantitative and qualitatively, is this thing producing what we think it's going to produce? So today, it makes sense to us. Ask me 2 years from now, we'll answer the question. I don't know the answer today. But that's the journey we are on. And that's what I want your feedback. So I want you to, I will go next one. These are the questions we started with, remember? I added one last thing at the end. Share your thoughts about anything you want to share. That's your thoughts about the framework. And if you can take a picture of that QR code up there or go to that website that's there, you can organize your answers there. I want, Oleg was insistent that we have, and I appreciate that, by the way. I'd like to be told what to do occasionally. I do listen. He wants to take it as a record. So I would really encourage you. I was going to divide you into groups, but then I changed my mind as I'm looking at that. Now, if you don't talk, I will put you in groups. So you decide now. If I don't hear feedback from you, I'm going to put you in groups and ask you to report. But you see the questions there. There are a few questions there. I like you to respond to me about those questions. Just read the question and see what tickles you the right way. And then tell me, are we smoking something? Because sometimes I wonder if I'm smoking something. Are we, on a scale of, 1 to 5, where are we? Sometimes I think I'm 1, sometimes I think I'm on cloud 7, 5. Feedback, talk to me now. Stan.
Dr. Ghosn, you mentioned that we have 35% Seventh-day Adventist faculty, and so we have wonderful diversity. I'm thinking of both our Muslim faculty and our Muslim students. What has been the reaction to this approach with those who are outside of the Seventh-day Adventist faith tradition?
Well, if you can add. I make it a tradition in my office that I meet with every faculty member. So I have met, I think, with maybe 95%. I'm sure I missed a few, but I met with almost 95% of the faculty, and a number of them are Muslims. We're not talking about a majority, like not even a 10%. I don't know what the percentage of Muslims we have. But the feedback I have gotten, well, first of all, you know what's the first question I ask people when they walk into my office? Who are you? And I don't care if they have 3 PhDs, they stop. They start to think, who am I? And they start repeating something in their resume and telling me about their background. I said, I've read that stuff. That's not my question. Who are you? And then they pause and they really tell me who they are. So with the Muslims specifically, what I hear from them, and it's not scientific, Stan, it's my interviews, if you will, when I meet them. And that's the interview is basically like 20 minutes. So I'm not talking I sit with them for 2 hours. 20 minutes. When I say, tell me about the model, or tell me about extending the healing ministry of Christ, living the healing values of Christ, graduating qualified professionals who practice healthcare as a ministry, whole person care, and all of that stuff, the feedback I get is, I can connect to that. I can connect to that. I am sending, by the way, AAA asked me to send 2 of my faculty to go to Chile and some other place, I forgot what country in South America, to evaluate the medical laboratory science programs that they are starting. One of the faculty that's going is a Muslim. And I asked the other faculty department chair, who happens to be an Adventist, I said to him, you have a problem with that? I mean, how will that person relate when he, and this is South America we're talking, right? This is not Massachusetts or some other place. This is South America, where, no offense, but they're a little bit more conservative in South America. And the department chair tells me, you will not find a better Adventist to go to represent Advent Health University there. Because when he is there, he's talking about love, he's talking about compassion, he's talking about, yes, so they're connecting. Yes, they don't believe in what we believe in terms of the, Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, but they believe in compassion. They believe in extending the healing ministry of Christ. By the way, Christ in the Muslim tradition or the Muslim faith is Isa, who is the son of Maryam, which is the same thing. He's very revered if you are a true Muslim. We're not talking about ISIS and those people. But the true Muslims revere Jesus almost as we do. Revere Maryam, actually, the mother of Jesus, more than we do. Not as much as the Catholics do, but more than the Adventists do. So there is good acceptance. And if you have more to add, please.
It makes sense. So the reason why this evidence-based is critical, and then also the framework, thanks for asking this question, because this question was asked so that people could hear. So they can relate. They can absolutely relate. In fact, when we talk about Sabbath or sanctuary and Advent, everyone relates to Advent. Jewish tradition, Messiah is coming. Muslim tradition, it's 100% relatability, including Buddhists, of course, and Hindus. No questions.
Thank you for this presentation on whole person education. I know there are some things still in development. You said maybe 2 or 3 years before it fully comes out. Did I see anything in your matrix or your assessments that looks at students after they graduate and their ability to implement what they've learned in whole person education in the workplace? Because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, so, I can just mention, we have 2 surveys, but surveys are not necessary, they're just surveys. Survey is good as survey could be. So what the next goal is longitudinal study in collaboration with Advent Health, when we could actually check the metrics and assess 3 years from after graduation, 10 years after graduation, 20 years after graduation. And we are thinking about putting it in place now when we could actually assess it. And Advent Health, it's easier because we know where they graduated from. So we just haven't found it yet how to find it easily. So that with HR, we need to work with HR.
Part 2 of that. So the assumption is, since I think you said 83% of the individuals who graduate work for Advent Health, the assumption is that Advent Health are recruiting students who have this kind of educational skill sets because they already have a model for its inclusion into the workforce. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's very correct. And even today, look guys, it's not that Advent Health University curriculum was not reflecting the things we talked about. We've always been teaching, belongingness and hope and all that. Nothing is new in a way. It's a matter of packaging and focus. So if you look today, and this is real evidence, graduates from Advent Health University that go to Advent Health have 2.5 times longer tenure than a graduate that came from another university to go work at Advent Health. 2.5 times. Now in hospitals, turnover is a problem. Nursing turnover in some of my hospitals reached 30%. 30. Now those of you who work in hospitals understand when you have 30% turnover, this means every 3 years you're starting new. Can you imagine what that does to the culture of the hospital? Can you imagine what that does to the extending the mission of the hospital, the training expense and all the stuff that goes with it? 30%. Our graduates are 2.5 times, they stay 2.5 times longer than a graduate from another university. So we are there. I want to make the 2.5, 5, and 10, and I don't know what the dream is. That's the goal. And I want to have those 540 students, I want them to become 1,500 students, graduates, not 500. I want to triple the number and graduate as many as we can under this model to go work. Because I did tell the corporate office, I did tell the CEO of the company, I told him, look, you have no chance of delivering whole person care if I don't give you whole person students. And he's in full agreement. And he gave me $55 million to do it. Not to do this, but to expand the program.
Yeah. And so just to piggyback on that also, it's what we try to do, because limitations of surveys are huge, to the point of that surveys are like, some people step away from surveys as much as possible also. So how could we create an assessment that will be in the form of a research that would allow to focus on retention, assess retention, number one, assess our customers' feedback or patients' feedback. So how could we create a system that would allow for that? And then we could just say, yeah, 10 years from now, this is what the results is. Okay, so one more, and then. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a student from Washington Adventist University, and not all of our student body is Adventist, and also not all of our student body is Christian. And so our religious and faith-based classes that are required, the feedback is not desirable from a faith-based institution perspective. And so this isn't a question, but I believe that this would have a much better feedback, and it would help our students, and it would help our university put out better individuals into the workplace wherever they go. We're not a health university. Our business courses are majority, but if we can get business people out into the world and have a better understanding of the whole person perspective, I believe that this would help a lot, and also retention as well.
What is your name?
My name is Zach Lowe.
Zach.
You know, Zach,
This is it, yeah.
you're absolutely right.
This is it.
The model, when we talk about whole person education, it's not limited to health care education. Imagine if this is being taught in the business schools
Yes.
and other places. Yeah, I agree with you.
So when we made it, so number one is this is the feedback that we get from our students who have gone through the first round of this experience. They say we can relate. We can 100% relate in spite of our religious or non-religious affiliations. So that is number one, and that was exactly the feedback that we received from liberal arts colleges. They say, we want to be fully on board, let's publish edited book. This is what they said, let's collaborate, let's produce something together. So thanks.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I'm just gonna piggyback to the question he was asking when he was meeting the faculty, asking them who they are. And I'm just kind of looking at a whole person education. And when you're asking them who they are, I'm just curious, what are you getting? I'm looking at this as a point where somebody needs to know who they are, what's their identity, how could they identify themselves? So I'm just wondering what the answers are. Are the answers leaning to the same side of who they are as a whole person? Are they just, pieces and pieces of a puzzle coming together?
Well, who are you? I'm really asking the question. Answer me.
Well, I can say I'm God's creation.
And what do you do with that?
And I am here to serve God because He put me here for a purpose.
That is the kind of answers I started to get. I am God's instrument here to deliver whole person education, to graduate a student who is able to deliver whole person care. And I'm not getting it universally, so I'm not going to lie to you. But over time, that's how the culture changes. And when I start to get it universally, then we know we have achieved it. Yeah. But you know what? It's an interesting question to ask, who are you? I mean, think about it and answer it for yourself. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, by the way, in front of everybody else. It's not an easy question to answer. Who are you? Most of the time, we fall on our resume. Now, your resume is sterile. If it says something wrong about you, then there's really something wrong about you, right? Anyway, others.
Thank you so much. I'm a guest here, so I'm sorry for asking the question and taking your time, but just like I love the presentation. Thank you so much. I appreciate the comment on process versus a program. Program is subject to be, over, but the process is actually everlasting. My question is, what are your steps to make this initiative or process, if you like, sustainable? Because all the processes, they depend on the vision of the leaders. And let me be transparent even more. If we take Oleg out of the equation, for example, or you as the leader of Advent Health, or any other leaders in the theology department, how long this whole person education idea will live, and what are the steps that you are taking right now to make it sustainable, even when you are gone? Sorry for this honest question.
No, that's fine. I can answer that very easily. I don't have to think about that. Well, when we started the process, we started 3 groups. Each group, 3 for the Trinity. Each group was 7. 7, I'm told, is a biblical number. So 7 times 3 is 21. That was the first group.
And 21 is the reverse of 12.
And 21 is the reverse of 12. Leave it for theologians to come up with these numbers.
Numerology, Kabbalah, Kabbalah.
But that's where we started with 21. The 21 today are 42.
They are, yeah.
So we just doubled. The 21 became 42. The 42 will add 21 to it next year. So within 3 years, I'm going to have over 150 people or so from half the campus, part of this initiative. Once I get to that point, then it becomes sustainable. So today you're right, but we can't do it in 1 year. As I said, the 21 became 42, the 42 will become 63, the 63 will become, and keep on adding. Every year, 21 will be added. Every year, 21 will be added, and we have long tenure. So the 30% turnover in the hospital doesn't exist at the university. The university has very low turnover. Sometimes it's bad, by the way, because some people, I want them to leave. They don't leave on their own. No, I'm exaggerating. So we have low turnover, which means that they will continue to increase. And before you know it, in a couple, 3 years' time, take 3 years. In a 3 years' time, I'll have over 100. When I have over 100, it's sustainable. So today, yeah, if we die today, I don't know what will happen. But in 2 years, doesn't matter after that.
I will just add, so we try to institutionally rewrite learning outcomes. To rewrite learning outcomes live in the university for more than 30 years usually. 20, 30 years, and there's some changes in so learning outcomes, all of these policies, we are changing them on so many levels to allow for that sustainability, hopefully.
Hi, I just have, following kind of like the same thought.
Tell me who you are.
So I teach at Andrews University, and I actually teach a class on wellness and health promotion. And one of the thoughts that I have is, I do my research in knowledge, attitudes, and practices. And I'm following on his question, the practice, when we try to teach the students wellness and health promotion and how to do that in the clinic, the main issue that we find is role models in the clinic, And I think this is something that, in this model, you can have all these. That's, for me, my research is knowledge, attitudes, and yes, I have all of that. And yet, I don't have role models in somebody that shows me the way of how to do this,
It's a challenge, no question about it. I don't have that problem at the university, but the problem we have, what you said is real, when they leave me, and I am this big, and go join the 90,000 person workforce at Advent Health, and that there becomes an interesting proposition to see what happens in the big Kahuna hospital and the other thousands of people they're working with and what kind of support they get. That's a challenge. I don't have the answer for you. That's the truth, unless you want me to make up one right now, which I'm not going to do. As I told you, we're building this aeroplane as we're flying. I don't have answers to everything, but it's a good question. Others?
Yes.
So, Oleg, could you just share with the group what's happened to your faculty as they have moved from sitting back and voting to becoming very engaged and involved? Can you just talk about that energy?
Could you tell us more about it, because you were president of the researchers.
Okay, all right. So you put me on the spot. That was good. That's funny. That's funny. So here's what I've seen happening at the university. Is that what? Is that?
Yeah, tell us about the experience.
So the experience is watching a group of faculty go from voting, giving a few bits of input, to becoming highly engaged and chatting over each other and disagreeing and talking and coming up with ideas. It's like the difference between old school and new school, and that process of everybody's voice mattering has caused this to exponentiate. It's phenomenal. It's like a whole hillside of blooming flowers, of all kinds of flowers. And it's really electric to watch. It truly is. I did not get paid to say that.
I used to be a teacher in my old days, some 30 years ago. And I taught at 2 universities for 12 years. And I taught senior classes and MBA graduate level classes. And I used to use the case study approach, which was back then in the 80s was new. It was developed by Harvard, so I took the classes at Harvard to understand how to teach those case studies and so on. And I would give the case study in the syllabus. I say these are the 2 case studies you have to do in a class like business policy and strategy or something like that. And I say, it needs to be 12 to 15 pages, something like that. And occasionally, I will have a student walk in my office and say, Dr. G, I can't write 15 pages. This is too much. And I say to the student, I say, well, how many pages do you think you can write? Well, I can write 12. And I say to myself, okay, what's the difference between 12 and 15? You can play with the margins, with the font, with the spacing, with the stuff. You can make a 10-page paper look like a 20-page paper. Who cares? I say, okay, go do it. And usually, not almost, always, when that student comes back with that paper, it's an A paper. And then behind my back, they will go back to their friends and colleagues in class and they say, I put him in his place. I told him I can't write a 15. I broke his syllabus. I told him I can write 12. And he told me yes. And I'm smiling to myself. Translate that to what we have here. I'm not telling the faculty what to do. The instruction in the syllabus was to write the paper. That's the instruction. And yes, I had a parameter, 15 pages. And they wrote 12 instead of 15. What's the big deal? The instruction here is I want to have whole person education. And I gave you a parameter. This model, I gave you a parameter. I want your teaching to reflect belonging, well-being, fulfillment, and purpose. Now you go tell me how you're going to do it. Because the way you're going to do it in the biology class, biology lab is going to be different from the way you do it in your whatever other class you're teaching. And over time, we're going to learn. So as Oleg said, we're not providing a book that you open to page 5, paragraph 2, and that's what you do. No, it's guidelines. So now I want you to tell me, how are you delivering purpose, belongingness, well-being, and fulfillment in your class? And they're all type A personalities. Told you they all have PhDs. They think they're God's gift to creation. Everybody wants to teach you how to do things. So they start to compete with each other. How do I do it better? How do I, outperform somebody else? That's how it happens. Leadership in my job, I have to remind myself, it is leadership among peers. It's the Indian model of leadership. The American Indian, the Native Americans, that's their model of leadership. You have chiefs sitting around the fire. They're all chiefs. But there's a greater among equals. That's the chief of the chiefs. They don't call him that. He's the chief. You're a chief. Everybody is a chief. But he is the greater among equals. And that's what I believe higher education is. I am the greater among equals. I don't know more than others. There's some stuff Oleg talks about. I have no clue where he got it from. I have to trust that he knows what he's talking about sometimes. You have those scientists walk in my office. I'm not a science guy. I know statistics. Nobody can run end games with me on statistics. I had a minor in research in my doctorate, so I know what I'm talking about. I know finance, I know management, I know strategy, but I don't know biology. I never took the class. I took anatomy and physiology once. I failed. I don't know if I finished it even in college. I speak languages, but I don't know the science, if you will. So I depend on my colleagues to tell me. And I make it a habit. And now we're veering off a little bit. I make it a habit not to hire people like me. I don't need another me. I need people that cover my blind spots. I need people who know something different that I do not know. If I'm going to hire me's, I'm going to be talking to me, and I don't enjoy that often. And that's how this model is going to work. Because everybody is participating. As I said, the 21 became 42, and the 42 will become 63, and the 63 will become 84, and keep on adding. Every year we add 21. I don't know the logic of three groups.
It's close to every year we add about 40. So it's every year. So it's because it's, but very close to that.
He's trying to make games with numbers with
That's
me
right,
now.
yes.
Okay.
Numerology. But I will add, so I will just say it's a messy process, very messy. The first day was a disaster because they came just, what do you want us to do? What do we do? First day, horrible experience. And then they came frustrated the first day. And then I didn't know whether they would come the following day, the second day. But I said, guys, this is we talked about it. This is the vision. So let's create, could we try to create a process that will take us there? This is the vision. So what do you want us to do? I don't. We'll see. Could you tell me what we could do to get there? And then the second day and the third day, and now they don't even rely. They don't rely. So for instance, the surveys, they come out on their own. So the work comes out on its own now. So everything is just moving.
And they think they are driving the car.
Yeah, 100%. And those who
And
are
that's
present,
important.
they see it. Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions from anyone?
And then at the end, if not, so this is very critical for us. The following one, for us, yes. So the survey, yes.
Well, I'm not saying no more questions. If you have questions,
Yeah,
ask.
please, yes, of course.
But if you have no more questions, I'd like you to scan this thing, and there is a 3-question survey we like you to take. It gives us feedback.
And that is critical for us because we also, every presentation now we make on whole person education or any other, so just we make sure that we gather the data, collect it, and then analyze it. So it's throughout, because we want to make any improvements. So write your suggestions, what we could do to improve. And yeah, keep in touch. Let's work together, okay?
Well, I have nothing more to add. If you have any other questions, you can ask me now during the break, but make sure you scan this QR code and answer the couple questions, please. Grace?
Thank you.